told you the way that the vote went. Although I do understand that the way the colleagues who've spoken might feel, I think you've got a bit far in what you said. No one's rights have been infringed, and there have been no breaches of the rules of procedure of the Parliament. If you've got any suggestions which will allow this committee to work better, I'm very happy to listen to them. And if you can find any mistakes I made during the procedure, please bring them to my attention. But once again, the idea is we're not keeping open this petition while we wait for the verdict from a legal body. That's the position. Whereas on the other hand, at the moment, there has been a formal closure of the permission, waiting for possible new elements which might have an impact on the discussion in a legal body of the European Union. I think it's a fairly clear situation, and I think that in similar situations in the past we've had to vote in order to see where the majority in the committee lay. When one's defending the rights of citizens, sometimes there are differences of opinion. So the objections made by colleagues have been minuted, but we can now close on the chairman's announcements, and there is a majority of the committee behind ratifying the coordinators' decisions. So now we can move on to the next item on our agenda, ladies and gentlemen, and we can begin. There's actually a change, given that the petitions that we have on this afternoon's agenda, there's only one signatory here. What we'll do is give priority, as we invariably do, to the petition where the petitioner is present with us. So we'll move to 660/2011 from Anna Spyra from Poland, item 16 on your agenda. And we'll ask Ms. Spyra to tell us why she has had recourse to our committee. You have the floor for 5 minutes, madam.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the Petitions Committee, first of all I would like to thank you for the possibility to speak to you today on my petition on the perinatal care standards. Just to remind you, my son Oscar is now 14 years old and he needs intensive care 24 hours a day. He doesn't walk, he doesn't talk, you need to feed him, you need to change him, and it really hurts me as a mother to see him suffer every day and to have to wonder what's going to happen when I die. That's why for many years now I have been fighting for adequate standards when it comes to perinatal care in Poland and in the rest of Europe. I would like to remind you at the very beginning the Article 35 of the Charter of the Fundamental Rights. Everyone has the right of access to preventive health care and the right to benefit from medical treatment under the conditions established by national laws and practices. A high level of human health protection shall be ensured in the definition of all policies and activities of the EU. The world unites for preventing children mortality. We have a new report that was published on the 13th of September by the UNICEF and the UN. And according to this new report, in 2012, around 6.6 million kids died around the world. Every day, over 18,000 children die. I'm talking about children below the age of 5. This could be all prevented by certain simple steps, especially when it comes to healthcare for the mother and for the baby in the first 24 hours of the life of the baby. This is very important. New investments are needed to strengthen healthcare. This is the quote from the WHO Director General, Margaret Chan. The European Board and College of Obstetrics and Gynecology of 36 countries in Europe is also calling for more action. There are huge variations among member states when it comes to access to equitable and high quality perinatal care and trained healthcare providers. A couple of words about my experience. I am one of the victims of the faulty perinatal care system in Poland. I was trying to seek justice between 2001 until 2013 when my son celebrated his 14th birthday. I had to immigrate from Poland, away from Poland. There was a case in the civil court and then in the public prosecutor's office, and there were so many mistakes and negligences. For instance, expert neurologist was not admitted to take part in the case. There was procrastination and finally prescription. I lodged a complaint with the European Court of Human Rights. I couldn't afford a lawyer back in 2007, and then my case procrastinated. It was finally heard behind the closed door and behind the closed doors, and the final decision did not reflect the facts. Unfortunately, no one wanted to help, so I decided to appeal to the Grand Chamber myself. Out of 27 appeals, 24 were rejected, and that was it. We lost. We lost together with my son. We lost 14-year-long fight in Poland for justice, and we bore all the costs. For the past 8 years, we have fought living in Germany, which made it even more difficult and expensive. At the end of the court case, I couldn't even afford my own lawyer, and the ex officio lawyer did not inform me, did not keep me up to date. Obviously, not everyone behaves in the same way, but I think that turning a blind eye, unfortunately, to cases like this is a rule. So I would like to take this opportunity and call on you, members of the Petitions Committee, to promote security and safety of patients by way of introducing good quality perinatal standards that would allow us to reduce infant mortality and prevent handicap. I would like to have guaranteed equality and equal treatment when it comes to perinatal care, to reduce infant mortality, to allow everyone to have an equal start, to allow women to have a safe birth and to carry the pregnancy to term. Perinatal and neonatal care is sine qua non. We should have an educational handbook of safe birth to make sure that every woman knows her rights and responsibilities of those who are around her. We should make sure that the approach to pregnant women is specialized to each and every case. Security when it comes to labor and delivery should become a pan-European standard when it comes to medical care, when it comes to the relationship between the patient and the healthcare providers, and finally when it comes to qualifications of the healthcare providers. I would like to call on you to create a new regulation that would protect all women, pregnant women and infants, to make sure that we have pan-European medical standards and procedures. We cannot allow to have a situation when everyone does whatever they want when it comes to such procedures. We have to do away with certain routine and obsolete practices. A doctor is only human and everyone makes mistakes, but when someone goes away from the overall responsibilities and rules, they should bear the consequences of such actions. In the EU, we do not register the number of errors and mistakes that relate to the lack of standards when it comes to perinatal care. This exists only in Scandinavian countries, so we do not know how many babies die every year because of such errors. In case of preterm births, there are no preventive actions taken. In some cases, there are not even any good practices that would allow to learn from mistakes. To take care of a preterm baby, you need 10 times more money than to care for a regular infant or healthy baby carried to term, so are requested and needed to make sure that the quality of perinatal care in Europe is improved. We need to make sure that the money goes to the right places. There are not enough people who would understand this very special situation. Parents have to fight on their own. They very often do not know what the standards should be when it comes to perinatal care. Some of them are not, some of the doctors, unfortunately, are not willing to help enough. Infants and babies die. We know that we are in the demographic low, so we cannot afford such a situation. We have to make sure that all Europeans can have healthy babies that could start their life on equal footing. So I would like to make sure that structural funds should go for adequate training for doctors, introduction of better standards when it comes to perinatal care. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak in front of you. I hope that we will act for the benefit of all of us.
Grazie a lei per questo interessante illustrazione.
Well, thank you for that very interesting series of comments. And now turn to Isabel de la Mata from the European Commission.
Thank you very much. We sympathize with the situation presented by the MEP Anna Spyra. The European Union addresses the issue of perinatal health protection within the limit of competencies conferred by the treaties to the European Union. So, we have, you know, that the legal competencies of the European Commission on health are very limited. Therefore, in the area of perinatal care, perinatal medical care, only recommendations and supportive actions are possible. We have been supporting projects in the area of health information mainly, and I imagine that you are aware of the European Perinatal Report that was delivered last May. We have been supporting projects like the Europeristat and also a specific project in the prevalence of cerebral palsy, and trying to put together standards, improve the data quality, the collection, etc. In addition to these several actions, the European Commission has been supporting expert groups in the area of perinatal health care in order to monitor the development and to identify the best practices, and trying to help the member states to improve their national situation. This is a national competence, so it's a competence for the member state to organize, to deliver, to finance the healthcare system and the healthcare services. The only thing that the Commission can do is support the member states, support the experts, support with projects, and we have been doing with the health program and with the research project. Research program, sorry. For example, we have just finished the CHICOS project, developing a child core research strategy for Europe, and also the REACH, that was creating an inventory for child health research in the European Union. We can agree with several of the things that Mrs. Spyra has presented. The need to invest in health, this is the competence of the member states. The European Commission, again, can support through the structural funds. The structural funds can be used for healthcare, to support the health infrastructure, and also to support the development of good health practices. With promoting the health safety, and we have an initiative on patient safety that has been already running for several years with the European Union member states. And now, with the new cross-border directive that will enter into force next week, that provides another instrument to the European Union to work with the member states, and also to the member states to provide indicators. You have said that only some countries report on medical errors. This is true, but we are trying that most countries and all the European countries join that initiative. Like that, we can learn from our mistakes, and we can provide for safer health care for all the European citizens, and including the children, of course. Regarding the training of the healthcare professionals, again, it's a national competence, but also the European Commission is supporting through the different programs of European social funds, for example. But it's the competence of the member state to allocate those funds in the specific area of healthcare. Well, and in summary, we are trying to support in our possibilities. It's not possible to have a unique, just one single, as you requested, manual for safe delivery, because it's not the competence of the European Union. I'm not sure that even is the competence of each national authority, because in some members the healthcare is regionalized to the region, but in any case, to promote the best care, the best healthcare attention for our citizens, yes, and I think that is the objective of everybody. Thank you very much.
Grazie alla Commissione.
Thank you, Commission. Let's begin the debate. Mr. Wałęsa is first.
Dziękuję, pani.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Yes, thank you very much for your presence. From what I have heard from the European Commission means, unfortunately, that you cannot do much. So I have a question, if I may. What kind of rights and obligations should women have when their child is born? I understand that you think that all women should have the same rights and obligations. They should be aware of them in the first place, never mind where the delivery is taking place. Do you think we are in need of some educational leaflet or study about safe birth? Would you, as the petitioner, be satisfied with such a textbook? And why do you think that errors are kind of swept under the carpet and they are not analyzed, and why no one is drawing any conclusions from them?
Szanowny panie...
No. One moment. No. We have to close the debate.
Przepraszam.
Mr. Bostinaro.
Grazie, signora Presidente. I have two questions, because one was already mentioned by Mr. Wałęsa. First, how to define what you called healthy birth and the guidance, which means a kind of manual or standards which have to be the same all around the country and all around the European Union, because this is in contrast with the each member state practice. It's mostly about the medical standards, not only educational ones, and how to create the legal norms to implement it. Because I'm coming from an Orthodox country, but I know very well that a norm should have rights and obligations. How to define the rights and how to define the obligations, and who will gonna be the one to implement the obligations when there is a failure. The second question will refer to the your opinion that some member states do have no analysis, no assessments, no either evaluations on the healthy births as you defined it before, and why they should accept, when knowing very well that the healthcare in general, it's a matter of subsidiarity, why they would accept EU standards, which is contrary to the treaties, of our European Union treaties. And in the end, I will say also something else. To give birth, it's also a matter of personal responsibility. It's a huge responsibility on the shoulders of a family, of a mother and a father. Not always a mother and a father, but at least one of them. How to transfer the personal, individual responsibility on the shoulders of an abstract, far away located institution. Do you think that this will ever work in Europe? Could someone in Brussels decide what is the healthy birth when the standards have been properly or improperly implemented, and they too also decide potentially an infringement procedure for a persistent failure of a member state of implementing such standards? Thank you.
Grazie. Ci sono altre richieste di parola?
Thank you. Anybody else? Please, yes.
Thank you very much. My predecessors have asked many questions. I'm not going to ask any questions because you, the petitioner, have come here because you are feeling helpless, and this is the state of mind in which usually petitioners come here because they have exhausted all the possible ways or remedies that they had at their disposal at the national level. So that is why they come here to the European level. So the only thing I would like to know is this: have you really exhausted all the national remedies available to you? Why are you here now? Is it because all the activities that have been taken in Poland have already come to a close and you cannot do anything else? Because the EU cannot do much in this respect. This is a matter for the national health service organization. On the other hand, social initiatives, grassroots initiatives, are they not helpful? Do you think they are not helping women? Because they are quite present. They do exist. The impression that I have from your petition is this is an appeal to treat pregnant women better, especially during labor. Thank you.
Grazie. Sono state rivolte molte domande.
Thank you. A lot of questions have been asked of our petitioner, so I'll ask her to reply to those questions if she wants to.
Postaram się odpowiedzieć na te pytania. Oczywiście.
Of course, I'll try to answer the best I can. As you know, this year, the European Board and College of Obstetrics and Gynecology of 36 countries in Europe submitted special and produced special standards that should be applied in all the 36 European member states. So we have a certain template that should tell us in which way we should proceed. So the template is there, but obviously it's up to every individual member state. When it comes to the actual standards that will be put in place, you have richer countries, you have poorer countries. For the past 8 years, I have been living in Germany, and really healthcare looks there totally different than it did in Poland. But obviously certain errors back then related to systemic errors, and it takes time to change the system, and I agree with that, I accept that. I'm in a way a victim of this system, and I just would like to make sure that no other person in the EU had to live with the trauma of delivery for the 14 years just because they belonged to a faulty system. That's why I'm calling on you and I'm talking to you as a mother, because actually when I look around I often have the impression that only parents decide to act in such situations, but obviously mothers or babies that already died would not be able to come here to you, and those mothers who have to struggle every single day with 24-hour-a-day care of their children would not have time to come here either. So I just would like to make sure that the European Union decided to act upon this template that I have mentioned, this template of standards, this new set of good quality standards. We cannot afford to waste money of our taxpayers to finance the deaths of our babies. I think we have to make sure that the money goes in the right direction to fight infant mortality and handicap. I have already said that a pregnant woman should know her rights and the responsibilities around her, and I talked to you about this handbook for pregnant women. 50% of pregnancies in Europe are unplanned. So the fact is that very often a woman would not know what standards should be applied, for instance, what types of tests she should do. Obviously, you have a poorer country where there are needs for savings. For instance, in Poland, well, Poland is still well behind the right model, I believe, and it still takes time when a woman wants to be seen by a doctor. She has to go to a private practice. It's not like she can afford it every time. So maybe we should publish a handbook on a healthy pregnancy. What tests should be done? What tests are obligatory? What are the rights and responsibilities when she actually goes to the hospital to have the baby? And again, I'm speaking from my own experience. There are so many good doctors. Honestly, there are so many good doctors. But you have to realize that doctors work very hard and they can be tired just like any of us, and sometimes maybe working too long. So, for instance, if you take let's take the example of a delivery room. What equipment should be there? For instance, a woman is accepted and admitted to the hospital, and how many hours a given woman can be on her own on the hospital bed without being seen by a doctor? I spend the whole day waiting for a doctor to see me, for instance. On the other hand, responsibilities of a pregnant woman. For instance, I did everything I had to do. I saw my gynecologist. I did all the tests I had to do. So those responsibilities should be obviously listed as well. But the European Parliament, I think, should be obliged to double check where the money goes. Is the money spent right? Why did the European Board and College of Obstetrics and Gynecology spend so much time and money to define those standards, and now they are left without being implemented? I think we should make sure that they are put in place. Obviously, I'm talking to you as a mother, but the decision is up to you. Perinatal care in Europe is extremely important. 500,000 babies are born preterm. It's again a huge risk for the entire Europe. Who will take care of them later on when they are handicapped, for instance?
Nobody else wants to take the floor because you did no proposal according to the procedure to adopt. I think you want to take the petition open and to wait for yes, for a different answer, because Mr. Bolsonaro.
Senora President, maybe we'll be wise to pass this petition to the Committee on Health, to have also their evaluation and to see through their lenses, to their competencies, if we can do something, because the tragedy, it's real. The problems of the persons experiencing such a at the limit situation are absolutely serious. Plus the malpractice, at least to properly define the malpractice in a common European language will be very important, at least to prevent in the future some of the tragedies on which Madam Petitioner just told us before. At least this is something we can do. So open and to be passed to the Public Health Committee.
Mr. Walesa?
Well, I like the proposal of Mr. Bostinaro, and I wonder if that's doable. Can we pass it to the another committee and ask for the opinion? If that's the case, then I would definitely concur with Mr. Bostinaro, and I would agree that we should ask other committee as well.
Sono d'accordo, sicuramente sarà.
I agree with that. It would be useful to send a request to the Environment and Public Health Committee. But there's also another possibility, Mr. Bostinaro. Rule 168, paragraph 5 in particular, says that the treaties show how Parliament, the European Parliament, can intervene. by agreement with Council, having approached the Economic and Social Committee and possibly the Committee of the Regions too. It can point to a way in which a goal outlined in the treaties can be achieved. For example, high levels of health protection. So we could do that here. I think this would stand as a special case. The figures that the petitioner has given us are quite worrying, and I think we'd also be expressing, if you like, our appreciation for the treaty. We represent the European Parliament, and we are making sure that part of the treaty which guarantees the right to life, or the protection of the right to life, and we could have a debate and work out how the European Social Fund, for example, its monies are being used to finance abortions. The question of life, the question of protection of these fundamental values are extremely important. More important perhaps than the ones that the European funding was designed to be spent on. And I think it's really our duty that we get in touch with the national authorities. It's our duty to do that. We should send a letter to them asking them to confirm or disagree with the figures that have been furnished by the petitioner, so that we can have an objective basis for our discussion, that our figures are not simply sent in from one side on the discussion or of the discussion, but from the national authorities in Poland too. So I'm very happy to hand this over to Public Health to find out whether they've already looked at this matter or whether they think it ought to be looked at. I'll get in touch with the Secretariat to look into the procedure under Article 168 of the treaty, and we can also send a letter to the Polish government asking them to comment on what we heard this afternoon. If you agree, therefore, the petition will remain open, and that's what we will do in our committee on this later on. So thanks very much, Ms. Spyra, and we'll move on to the next petition, well, actually the previous petition, since we jumped ahead a bit there. So now we have petition 1454/2012 from William Sanders, a UK citizen, on alleged discrimination in the student fees paid by English students in Scotland. The petitioner is not with us, so what I'll do is give the floor straight away to the European Commission, Antonio Marco.
Thank you. So the problem in this petition is that, according to the petitioner, English students are being discriminated against the Scottish government because Scottish universities are charging them higher fees than to Scottish students or other European students. The Commission would mainly point out that this situation is, from the standpoint of EU law, is an internal matter, a purely internal matter, given that the differences in treatment in dispute only concern local students for the purposes of EU law, as, for instance, Welsh, English, Scottish, and Northern Irish students are all British students, and therefore it is mostly a question of a difference of treatment between these students, which has no connection with EU law. And as the Court of Justice has consistently held, such situations cannot call for the application of EU law provision, and therefore must be treated at national level. So the Commission takes the view that UK authorities or courts are exclusively competent to assess whether such a situation is compatible with national law provisions. Thank you.
Any colleague like to take the floor on this petition? Mr. Jahr.
Ja, eine kurze Nachfrage, weil
Just a short follow-up question.
because I imagine that, in fact, I'm sure that the Commission's answer is the right one, and I'm sure that corresponds to what citizens expect regarding the legal system. We talk about European citizenship, and we're very pleased when citizens develop a European feeling.